Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Get ready, pal.
Here's your host, Randy Tobler.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 950 KWS. I'm John Marsh. And Dr. Tobler and company, Stephanie Bell, both out today. Producer Hannah's in, Brian Hauswirth is in, and Brad Jones, the Missouri director of the National Federation of Independent Business, back with us, playing the guest host role.
Good morning, John.
Did we forget to change the locks again?
I think so.
How'd he get in here?
They make me stand out in the cold for minutes. It's really disconcerting. I know. It's not easy to be me, Hannah. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good.
Other than having to stand out in the cold for 30 seconds.
Well, they don't trust me with the code here, you know. They trust me to come in and talk to Mid-Missouri, but they don't trust me with the code, so...
It's an FCC thing. What can we say?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. It's an FCC thing.
Yeah, we were talking with Brad. We were saying, what do we got on tap? Well, our regular Monday visit with the Missouri Times, Scott Faughn. He had the governor on his TV show this weekend. The governor, as we speak, is winging his way back from...
He's been down yonder.
Eagle Pass, Texas, doing the border thing. And State Senator Mike Bernskoetter will be joining us 7:35 this morning. Mid-Missouri Senator carrying one of your pieces of legislation, we understand.
Yes, his piece of legislation is an unemployment bill that's sort of like Christmas. It comes every year.
There it does.
It's got a long history.
History of vanishing into the woodwork.
Actually, it goes back to Mike Keogh when he had it. So yeah, so we could talk to the senator about that.
We will.
It's got some history to it.
Former Missouri state economist, as we bill him, the liberal you love to hate, Tom Kruckemeyer, with his analyzation of the governor's State of the State address and the state budget, and Lyle Rosberg from the Host Lions Ham and Bean fundraiser, which is quite the social event of the season for those in the know at the Capitol.
That's right. Everybody knows when the Ham and Bean lunch is. So.
I was watching 60 Minutes last night from the Communist Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS, and they had the chairman of the Fed on, the Honorable Mr. Powell, and boy, oh boy, did he paint the rosy picture of the economy.
Well, yeah, he's been very popular lately, or infamous. I don't know what it is, but anyway, everybody's looking at the Fed right now because we did add, evidently, 350,000 jobs or something. It was reported last week. And so everyone's looking at the Federal Reserve and saying, okay, especially Wall Street, I'm sure, are looking at the Fed and saying, all right, are you going to cut the interest rates? And I guess there's a couple of opportunities coming up, one in March and then one in May. The March one is pretty much a no-go. I don't think
he said that. Yeah,
that's not going to happen. The May one, he said they're going to monitor the economy the way it's going right now and kind of see what happens. And I think that's even enough for Wall Street to go, well, okay, well, maybe, because the market's been certainly better than it had been for the last couple of years. But we do at NFIB, we survey our members on lots of things. And one of them, we do our own little jobs report. We've got the Small Business Economic Trends Survey that's coming out next week, which will be kind of interesting to see. It's the optimism index, as we've talked about, is 10 things, and then we look at them, and then they put them together with a number. And so, anyway, it's that's trended up the last couple, but the issue is it's not all that rosy, especially for small business people, because we've still got this problem with hiring people. We've got nationally, I think the unemployment rate's like 3.7. It's lower than that here in Missouri. And the biggest problem that we've got is the fact that you've got no one out there in the pool for small business people when they're trying to hire right now. And it's not like they haven't tried, because we've got, according to this survey, we've had 55%. We've got over half small business people tried to hire last month. Mm-hmm. And couldn't. They had 89% of them that couldn't find anybody to fit the jobs that they had. And you've got
what they're able to pay.
Yeah. Well, and then that gets at this other issue. This gets back to the Econ 101 thing. If they can't hire them, then they've got to pay more money to get the people that they want. They pay more money, they've got more costs, and therefore that comes back on you and I when we go to the grocery store or we go out to eat or whatever. That is an inflationary part of what fuels inflation, and so it's not the rosiest thing, especially for small business people. Fed
chairman says it is. He says the inflation rate is tracking down every time they look at it, and it's just rosy as it can be.
Well, he's not wrong about that. It's tracking down, but it's not at 2%. It's not at 0. I mean, it may be going down a little bit.
It's been in how many years? 25 years or whatever?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's still there. And the pressures to bring it way down are still there, as I just said. You still are paying more to hire people, and consequently, when you're doing that, there's no way that you're just going to eat it. I mean, that is going to come out somewhere. As I said, you push on the balloon one place, it's got to come out someplace else, and it's prices.
Well, then you get the whole angle that people will spin into it in defense of the small business people. Well, they're just greedy. They want all that money for themselves, and they don't want to pay these entry-level kids anything and all that. Well, tell it to your small business owners trying to make ends meet, is doing 15, 16, 17-hour days because he doesn't have that staff, and doing payroll in the books and stocking and everything else, and he's still the guy on the cash register.
That's a silent killer, too.
It is.
What you just brought up is the fact that the poor owner now, who's putting in their 70, 80 hours a week anyway, now we're putting in 100. And finally, I guarantee you it's happening out there. Some of them are throwing up their hands and saying, forget this, man.
I'm done.
You know what? I got no life whatsoever. Yeah. And they shut their doors.
Look at some of the family. Look at some of the high profile. We won't name names, but some of the high profile businesses right here in Central Missouri, family owned,
right? That
sold out and said, "See you later."
Yeah.
I mean, Whaley's Pharmacy for one.
And that's one that's just Whaley's is Jeff City. It's been around for so long.
World War II or so.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other.
See, the same thing in Columbia.
The other thing that bothers me too is, you want to you build your business up so hopefully you can turn it over to other family members, your kids or whatever, and
we'll give them the option.
And going second and third generation for the family business just isn't happening anymore. It's kind of sad. I mean, there's a variety of reasons. Maybe the kids just don't want to deal with it, but some of it I think has to do with economics for sure.
Man.
Brad Jones in with us this morning. Missouri director from the National Federation of Independent Business. Calls or texts this morning, 875-9390. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I guess, when we watched the Fed chairman last night on 60 Minutes, Mr. Powell, and he said, Scott Pelley asked him point blank, well, you guys are going to revisit the lending rate come March? And he said, no. He said, well, what's your next meeting? He goes, well, not until May. And from listening to what he said, didn't sound like anything's going to happen in May either.
No, I think that's a coin flip at best as to what they're going to do in May. And when you look at the national economy like this, it's kind of interesting to me. I've always said presidents take too much credit and they take too much blame for a U.S. economy. I mean, it's like steering a big old ship, because it kind of moves kind of slow. And a lot of it has to do with
like an oil tanker in the Red Sea with the cruise missiles coming at it.
That's right. And I think a lot of people look at the national economy, and the other thing that kind of irritates me is the national press. If they tell you that it really sucks enough, you're going to think it's really, really bad or it's really, really good. And I think their perception, of a lot of people out there is maybe I should hold off on spending or doing this or that because the media is telling me that I probably should, when the reality is maybe it's not as bad, or it's maybe not as good as you think it is.
I think just for the average Joe lunch bucket, as we call them out there, they go to the gas pump, they go to the mom and pop store, they go to the big box store, and they go, oh, inflation's slacking off. Well, let's see, I just paid $3 a gallon and $2.50 for a dozen eggs.
Yeah, well, I told you there's that article in the paper that said the economy seems to be improving and the American people are not happy about it. And it was like, I got to read this. And it was exactly what you said. They're not seeing it. They're not feeling it. And they're the ones that are the best litmus test, especially small business people. I mean, they are the canary in the mine. They are the ones that are the first ones to know when they've got product or something that they're buying, or they've got materials or whatever that they've got to run their business, and it ticks up. They're the very first ones to know that their expenses are going up.
Man, John.
And it's just, I think it's the same with the American people. Yes. Sorry, Hannah.
I was going to say, John, what did you feed Brad this morning? He's like ready to go right out of the gate.
There were leftover donuts from the Saturday shows in the green room, so I think Brad's been tanking.
Are there? I haven't been in there.
Capitol Hill, key highlights of the Senate's proposed border deal package, and some of the senators saying, fine and dandy, it's dead on arrival. Our daily D.C. rundown just ahead. When we come back with Brad Jones. weekend down in Eagle Pass, Texas, propping up the Texas governor and surveying the situation with the GOP governors who are, no uncertain terms, saying the Biden administration, Mayorkas included, have dropped the ball.
Well, I mean, you look at the numbers, it just kind of boggles my mind. Yeah, I don't think we have a concept of what 300,000 people are. I mean, you think about a football, one of our biggest football stadiums, that's filling it up 3 times. And where are all these people going, And it's just, we were talking about the economics of it.
They're going to New York.
They're going to New York.
Martha's Vineyard.
I know. They're going to places that are sanctuary cities that are now saying,
we don't want to be a sanctuary city.
Wait a minute.
We changed our mind, guys.
I don't want to do this anymore. Wait a minute.
Well, what happens when they start showing up in Kansas City and St. Louis?
Well, I how do you know they haven't?
Yeah,
yet?
good point.
I mean, I'm
in
sure.
that massive quantity,
right?
Well, I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
Stephanie just recently was on a flight where it looked like a bunch of, people were coming over and they were just given basically a manila envelope with instructions or papers or something, and none of them spoke any English, and she wondered if it was, maybe a transplant going to a sanctuary city.
Yeah, it sure sounded like it, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
I don't know. Brad, this spins right back to small business, because you get then people saying, well, how does 3,000 people a day coming through all these border crossings affect small business? Well, yeah, okay, the small businessman paying all his taxes for health insurance and everything else to the feds, and meanwhile they turn it around, hand illegal immigrants a free Visa card and say see you later.
Well, I think, and rightly so, I think a lot of small business people have got a little chip on their shoulder. I do it right. I do everything by the book. I pay my unemployment. I pay my workers' comp. I do all of these things. And then there's a segment out there that don't. And I think there's a real disconnect sometimes with small business and the government when it comes to the economy and why is it that you're doing this for them? And I'm a generational company that's been here for for 100 years, and I'm not seeing that you come down on me because of $20 worth of taxes or something or a business license or something that's a day late and crap like that. And so you talk about the small business feelings towards the government. It's not real warm and fuzzy a lot of times because you've got regulation stuff. I've brought some stuff the feds are doing on regulatory stuff from this administration, and it's just death by 1,000 cuts, and you wonder why they're grumpy about their government. Well, get out of their pocket and out of their way and let them do what they do, which is sell their stuff and employ people and do what they need to do.
Well, it's it just seems like that same debate cycles back around. Then we hear the debate, well, you got on one hand, it is the illegal immigrants are taking the jobs nobody else wants. And then you get the argument from the other side. They're taking jobs that people need, but we've got people not wanting to go back to work. So, what's the answer, right?
Well, I think what you hit on is the weirdness of this economy right now. I mean, it's a lot of the normal what you consider Econ 101 kind of stuff that goes on with the economy is this happens, then this is going to happen, and then if this happens, then this is going to happen.
But
doesn't apply to what's going on right now. And so it's it's been interesting. Even our own economist, Bill Dunkelberg, who is one of the most respected economists, in the country on small business,
Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Brad, not to leave anybody out of the loop, but as we hit the spot break, Brad and I are like, okay, what's really going to happen in the Senate, Brad, with some of the bills that you're carrying and all that fun stuff over there? Because they're not done by a long shot with the bumping of heads on either side of the aisle. Not that there's an aisle at the Senate, right?
You know, John, my prognostication of what the Senate or the House will do or not do, those days are over. You might as well go to the racetrack.
DraftKings.com.
That's right. That's right. You know, picking the exacta on that is difficult. But
over and under.
But I will say this now, because we do have calendars, and for those listeners out there, they call it the perfection calendar, which means nothing to you. But if you say debate calendar, that makes a little more sense, because we do have some bills now on the debate calendar, both in the Senate and in the House. And I think in the House, there's a very good chance that the child care credit bill that you all have talked about and we've heard a lot about, and really has a lot of support, passed last year. Representative Brenda Shields has done a great job. Lauren Arthur actually has that bill in the Senate, too. So I think, honestly, of all the bills, this might get a nice reception when it comes over to the Senate. Now,
time frame is the question, right?
You know, please don't quote me on that, and don't put that as a clip. But
I'm writing this down as we speak.
No.
On Monday, February 5th.
Stop it.
Brad Jones said.
But I think that's right at the top of the list in the House as far as bills to be debated, and so. I think, of course, the House does things a little bit different over there. You know, they have this PQ thing, and when they think that they're tired of listening to you, we're done, and we're going to vote.
Well, we've talked at length on the air about probably one of the most inside baseball operations from over there, because the average listener goes, what the heck is a PQ?
Yeah, that's a previous question. It's a motion. It's a privileged motion that just says, that's
enough.
That's it. We're done. We don't talk no more. It's not going to happen anymore. We're done.
So kind of like what they did with roll carts in Columbia, but then, wait, they went back on that.
Trash talk is trash talk. Right?
I don't want to get started on that, but, we've had roll carts in Jeff City for how long now?
Gosh, 20 years.
It hasn't been a big thing.
It was initially. People were wound up.
It was, but we got over it pretty quick.
And it was the two-stream thing where you have a trash cart and a recycling cart right next to each other on the curb, and they were like, nobody will ever be able to figure this out. We're all madder than hell and not going to take it anymore.
Columbia people, I'm just telling you, you can figure it out. It really, one's got a gray lid, one's got a blue lid. It's really not that hard.
Push them back up by the house.
You push
when
them
it's
over
not
by the
trash day.
house. That's right. You push them out on the curb. Somebody comes and picks them up. It's really not all that big a deal.
That's a perfect segue from Columbia City politics to what's going on in the state capitol when you talk trash carts.
Sorry, that was a rabbit hole that I went down. I apologize for that. But what's going on in the Capitol? I think we will see some debate on the child care bill this week. I'm hoping. Probably.
Well, that's something, in defense of Governor Parson, who's had an interesting 6 years over there, to say the least. That workforce development stuff has been right at his forefront from the get-go, and that, boy, oh boy, child care tax credits, that factors right into that, freeing up the workforce.
You talk about the workforce, and you talk about small business, and you talk about certain issues that hit small business disproportionately. When you've got somebody that has a child that is in child care and something happens at the child care center or whatever, and that small business owner has to go and take care of it, which happens, and there's only 3 other people in the shop, it's a big problem. The bigger problem is you've got employees that can't find child care at all, or it is so expensive that they can't afford it. That's another big issue, and it's gotten to be a real business issue, because you've got, I think, when you've got 40% of our membership that can't find people to go to work, I think you've got a lot of parents out there that have to stay home with their children that would rather be out working, and they can't do it because they can't find any place to take the children.
Well, the news story that we reported here recently, Boone County government, Boone County Sheriff's Department / emergency responders up there have announced their intention to build
their
a
own
dedicated in-house daycare.
Well, and I think there's some bigger companies and some bigger communities that are looking at all of those kind of options. Now, when you start dealing with building a child care facility, you are dealing with one of the most regulated businesses on the planet. So navigating all of that, when you sit down to build a child care facility or put a facility like that together, and then you look at the regulations, which look like, War and Peace.
Yeah. Makes the EPA look like they regulate nothing.
It does. Then you're thinking to yourself, do we really want to do this or not?
Well, and as someone who has a little bit of experience working in child care, I was astonished to find out just how many rules there were. Everything from what a baby has to wear to sleep, which is a sleep sack according to the rules, even if the baby doesn't sleep in one at home, all the way to, the exact foods that they're eating for breakfast and lunch and their snack, to, the amount of time they spend playing outside. It's all regulated. It's crazy.
No, Hannah, it is, as you said. And, I think too, the biggest problem that we've had is during the pandemic, we lost a lot of them. We lost a lot of child care centers. And we've got, especially in areas in rural Missouri, we've got what they call child care deserts, where there just isn't any place. You don't have any options.
If grandma and grandpa aren't available, you're pretty much out of luck in those places.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think that bill will probably come up this week. You talked about economic development, a bill that Alex Riley has, which is they call it the regulatory sandbox bill, which is to provide some regulatory relief for some startup companies, tech companies, little companies that look at a certain regulation and say, I could probably get going for 6 months to a year if I didn't have to do this. They also call for the Office of Regulatory Reform, which is great for small businesses because they've got a place that they can call and say, have you guys looked at this particular reg? Because this is really jamming us up in our business. And they've got some place to go. We used to have the Regulatory Fairness Board, which kind of went away because one of our governors wouldn't reappoint anybody to the board because the agencies hated it. And so that's kind of going away. But this could take its place, and it could be at least a sounding board for small business folks who have really some problems with certain regulations, whether they be whatever, agriculture related or tax related, environmental related, So that could be heard this week, and that got fair attention last year.
Well, that's one of those deals that doesn't, to the average Wake Up Mid-Missouri listener, like, yeah, okay, whatever, it doesn't affect me. It does when you go shop at the small business up the street, where instead of the owner doing customer service and hunting for enough staff and all, is in the back office trying to do all the paperwork on that stuff.
Well, like I said, when you're talking about regulations, you really are talking death by 1,000 cuts, and so much of it, a lot of it's federal, but we've got some state stuff too, and the problem is having any recourse. I mean, you talk about regulations as being the fourth estate. You got the executive branch, and you've got
media
the
factors in there somewhere.
You got the three levels of government, and then you've got kind of the silent one, which is sort of the
bureaucracy,
the regulatory part of it, and trust me, it's a real thing. Ask a restaurant, ask anybody that's out there that has to be regulated by one of the agencies or another. You've definitely they're in your face and they're in your life. And so there's a couple of bills I think that may come up in the House this year that we're looking at, and then in the Senate. Do we have time? Do we have another hour?
A couple minutes.
I'm not going to guess what the Senate's going to do, but they do have some bills on the calendar, including one that Senator Bernskoetter has, and we'll talk to the good senator here in a little bit when he pops in.
That's it.
So.
Mid-Missouri Senator Mike Bernskoetter will be joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 7:35 this morning. I know something we can discuss a little. Missouri Times publisher, Excellence, Scott Faughn in with us at 7:10. And boy, oh boy, we've talked so much about the conservative caucus, now the Freedom Caucus, the ultra-conservative Republican faction, the Missouri Senate, and their filibusters and all. And the Democrats have yet to weigh in, other than sitting on the sidelines with big smiles on their faces, gloating. That doesn't mean they're not going to take a shot at it themselves when we get into the IP reform debate in earnest.
I think they're resting, John.
Yeah,
I think they're resting.
They've popped their popcorn, and they're just sitting there enjoying the show, and I don't blame them because it's been a nightmare.
Waiting for the butter to melt.
Well, Hannah, I think that the couches and taking the naps on the old couches in the offices are going to take place here real soon, because the initiative petition bill is on the calendar. Mary Beth Coleman has it, and I think when that comes up, or the RFA, there's two bills that are potential landmines over in the Senate that could really spar some really long filibusters. So,
you mean longer than what we've seen already? Or?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, believe it or not, this initiative petition one, I think, is going to
break the record.
It could break a record. We'll see. We'll talk to the senator about that and see if there's any room for maneuvering on that. But
better start handing out the Red Bull now.
The Red Bull, that's right. That's right. Footy jammies on the Senate floor could happen.
Right. Brad Jones in with us, the Missouri Director of National Federation of Independent Business, along with Brian Hauswirth and producer Hannah. 875-9390 this morning. The Shake It Up lady. after last night, racking in yet another Grammy or two.
John, this just in. Very important.
Yes, sir.
The We Like That Too podcast.
Yeah, your podcast.
Has purchased the entire Taylor Swift catalog.
Oh, shoot. So do I owe you a nickel for playing that?
You'll get a,
Yes,
you'll get a bill.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
So now she is at the heart of a deep state, right-wing, deranged notion, as CNN calls it, the sprawling psychological operations plot staged by the NFL and the Democrats to deliver the election to Joe Biden via Taylor Swift.
This has got to be the stupidest thing I have ever heard in my life. I'm just saying. Poor Taylor.
She's going
I
to...
like her. I think she's a small businesswoman. You know, she owns her own stuff. She does her own thing. She's smart. And
she's going to go, the word is, she's going to go up on the stage
at the Super Bowl
halftime show. Yep.
You think so?
And throw a Kanye on Usher.
No, I don't, Hannah. No, I absolutely don't.
And endorse, in front of God and country, endorse Joe Biden for president while taking over the Super Bowl halftime show.
And those of us with common sense will go, yeah, saw that one coming.
Yeah.
That she would endorse him. I mean, she kind of sort of endorsed him in 2020. I don't think anyone should be very surprised when one of these big Hollywood A-listers, endorses the left-leaning candidate. But here we are, last week there was breaking news sounders.
Bum, bum, bum.
Taylor Swift is going to endorse Joe Biden for 2024. Okay,
Yeah.
And?
This just into us.
Right.
But now that the We Like That Too podcast will own all of her stuff, we can kind of put the thumb on her, Hannah, and say, Miss Taylor, here's, the Joe Biden thing would not be in your best interest.
On the other side of it, maybe the podcast could get some of that Biden super PAC money.
On the other hand, if the podcast could get her on for 15 minutes, believe me, I know both.
Let her endorse anybody she wants.
She can do whatever she wants.
Well,
capitalism is alive and well.
Last night was, of course, the Grammys. And unfortunately, Mr. Kelsey did not make an appearance on the red carpet with Taylor like many were hoping, myself included. He's got like some big game he's got to get ready for.
I think they're kind of locked down too, usually.
Yeah, I kind of hope that Travis is taking care of his other business. He does play football.
But she managed to kind of tick some people off last night. I was scrolling through some socials this morning and was seeing a lot more Taylor Swift hate than normal. Of course, she won Album of the Year for her Midnights album last night, and this is her 4th award of that nature, and that makes her the first woman to do so. But folks are ticked off that she didn't acknowledge Celine Dion, who is the one who presented her the award, saying that, she didn't make eye contact or anything like that. I'm like, I'd be excited that I won that award. And she probably wasn't too focused on who she needed to hug or acknowledge on the stage. And then secondly, she had been teasing that she was going to be releasing the Taylor's version of her Reputation album, so folks thought. But she kind of did a red herring and ended up announcing the release of a brand new album while she was doing her acceptance speech. So folks are irritated that, she took the spotlight away from everyone else.
Long as they're talking about you, right,
exactly.
Brad?
Come on, man. When you get to be at her status,
On the hotline this morning, the publisher of the Missouri Times, our buddy Scott Faughn. Scott, good morning.
Morning, bud.
How are you? We saw you had the governor on the TV show over the weekend.
Oh, yeah, he got to come in. We're going to talk about kind of the wrap-up of his State of the State speech. And we talked about rural Missouri. So many of these things cross over. When he leaves, who's going to be the defender of rural Missouri? I think that is as I've told you before, in the capital, the rural folks are pretty nice. The city folks, not quite so much. I think sometimes we get taken advantage of. Governor Parsons has been a backstop there for 6 years now. You just wonder who feels those shoes, right?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think Mike Parson is. I've known him for a long time, and I think you agree, Scott. He's just kind of what you want in a public servant. He looks at things thoughtfully, and I think he does. He looks at a lot of the issues through a rural lens, and we've got a lot of rural Missouri out there. So, what would be what's your take then? I think on what the governor's next plan will be for his life.
I think he is going to enjoy being in Bolivar. He's going to enjoy sleeping in his own bed for a while. He's going to enjoy the farm. Then I bet you're going to see Governor Parson will be almost Jimmy Carter-esque in his post-governorship. I think you're going to see him at every volunteer award show. You can see him at every charity auction. I think he will tour the state he loves, and I think he'll be very, very warmly received.
I think so too. That's for him. I mean, you couldn't script it a better retirement than that.
Yep,
Scott.
It is. I have seen him be so much more freed up than say maybe our recent attorney generals, even because he's not. When he took the job, he said, "I'm not running for anything else," and I think that's given him a freedom to do things he thinks is right, maybe that other folks aren't afforded.
Win, lose, or draw, looking back at his State of the State address and his accomplishments and sessions leading up to this one, Scott, for folks in a company town, especially Jefferson City and Columbia to a big extent with the university, he's been good for state government employees, hasn't he?
Well, I mean, I think Mike Parsons, you see some Republicans that have a hatred for state employees, and I think Mike Parsons would rather have a smaller government that he's leaving behind, but he's a good guy. He actually cares about folks who work for a living, kind of move up his ladder. So, I mean, I think he'll easily go down as one of the most accomplished Republican governors in the history of the state. I think he was there and had a steady hand at the right time. And, yes, folks around here, I think Jeff City folks, state government, Columbia people at the college, you benefit from stable, honest leadership. And I think that's what you see in Columbia with the university now. That's what you see here in the state. And you hope that trend continues. Hope the voters take it seriously in August.
Hey, Scott, we've got looks like we've got another candidate for the third. Looks like Bob Onder has decided he's going to be jumping in with the Blaine Luchtemeyer's seat. What's your take, and who else do you think's going to be maybe throwing their hat in that?
Well, I think Bob Onder has been focused on federal issues the whole time I've ever known him. I think he was definitely going to get in this when he had the chance, and I think he starts off as the favorite. His fundraising ability, the fact he's ran this district once before, he starts off as the favorite. To me, though, look, this is two districts, right? You have an urban district kind of east of Wentzville, and then you got good rural Missouri folks west of Wentzville. The split's right at 50-50 as far as the primary vote. The truth is we need someone from the western side of the district to think about our folks. I mean, is this congressional seat another thing we're going to ship to St. Louis? I don't know. It's an interesting thing to see how folks approach it. But I'll give you, Travis Fitzwater probably started off as the favorite from the west. Well, Caleb Browden, I always thought if he wanted, he would have ran last time. But, Caleb Browden would be a tremendous candidate. I think Taylor Burks has been making some rumblings. The person I'm hearing now that a lot of folks are getting behind and making a run at is the Cole County prosecutor, Locke Thompson. You've heard his name rumored and mentioned here and there, but I think the folks west of Wentzville would like to see the congressman stay in mid-Missouri. If you want to do that, you got to get one candidate. And the guy I'm hearing about is Locke. I mean, great record as prosecutor, young guy, beautiful family. I think if he were to seriously consider it, he would have a good shot at lining up the West.
Scott, we appreciate you joining us live. In terms of the House right now, I know there's a lot of budget hearings are going to be taken today and throughout the week. In the Missouri House Budget Committee, they're going to hear testimony from DHSS and also mental health today. The governor proposed, as you know, about a 3.2% cost of living adjustment, so a pay raise for state employees. I looked at I was watching the feed, and the basically every lawmaker in the chamber stood up. The first one that stood up was Adrian Plank, who's a Democrat from Columbia. Any issue with getting that through?
Yeah, the House, the governor wants to run this with some business principles. You can't really run government like a business. People say that, but not really. But I think definitely you apply some business principles. It sometimes it saves you money to increase the salary a little bit of some of your better employees in order so they don't leave and train somebody else. And so, yeah, I think that it'll get through. It'll come through. Look, the way this budget process has worked for 5 years now is the House passes like a political statement. The Senate passes a budget. Then the governor meets with the Senate, and they kind of line things out. And the House takes the Senate's budget. I assume that'll continue. There's no reason to think it won't for a sixth year. So, yeah, I think the cost of living increase will get through. I think it's probably a good move by the state, a good business move by the state to do it.
Mm-hmm. Missouri Times' Scott Faughn with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Now, Scott, as we're talking about folks who might potentially throw their hat in the ring, I've seen some things on the Twitter from Eric Greitens, and it's
already awesome,
causing some speculation that he might be running for that 3rd district seat. What do you think about that?
I think if you go to the Capitol and you look there in the marble, the claw marks, those grooves are claw marks, and they're always the folks that just cannot lead politics that say they hate it the most, right? If they call it the swamp, if they say everybody's evil and awful, those folks would run to their last dying breath. I could see Eric Greitens 5 years and I'm running for dog catcher somewhere in Innsbruck.
Just won't ever fully go away.
He'll run for Congress. The one thing you got to say about that guy, whatever Eric Greitens does, he makes it more interesting.
You never know.
Yeah,
well, you got that right. Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
I'd love it. I'd pay his filing fee.
You'd pay his filing fee.
There you go, Eric, if you're listening right now.
Speaking of which, I guess, Scott, we got filing coming up, don't we, in a couple of weeks? I was talking to John. I said, that's when all the speculation, all the rumors, everything sort of comes to fruition, when you've got to come to Jeff City, pay your money, put your name on the line. And we were talking about, do we think there's going to be any big surprises? And I said, here's the thing with filing when you get towards the end of filing, I think there's always a few surprises of people that say, yeah, I really thought this was a good idea, but now maybe not. Or they decide, you know what, I am jumping into this. If he or she's not running, I'm going to run. So I don't know if you see any of those kind of dark horse sort of candidates popping up at the end or not, but it's always fun. It's always fun, I think, for us that enjoy the political, having the heat sheet at the end of March, actually having the list and being able to look over it and say, oh wow, okay, I see what they did there. What's your thoughts on that?
I would give you two. One, again, I think that somebody from west of Winslow in this congressional race will get in. I think if they hold their base, they'll win it. So, usually folks that come in and file late don't turn into favorites. This person possibly could. The other one, I think Lincoln Huff, the Senate Appropriations Chair, he is widely respected, can raise a lot of money. I think he may consider getting that lieutenant governor's race. Don't know how that'll shake out. He's got two boys there in Springfield that he likes to spend a lot of time with. But I could see – it'll be interesting to me to see if he doesn't jump in. And if he does, he will be able to – he has some money in the bank. He'll be able to raise a boatload more. If he applied himself to a statewide race, whatever Lincoln applies himself to, he's usually pretty successful at. If he applies himself to the statewide race, then he can be very successful there as well.
He'd be a great candidate.
Scott, about time for one final question. A question to you is: we've done so much coverage, all the delaying tactics and filibusters and all, by the Freedom Caucus at all in the Senate. The Democrats have yet to speak on that regard, and there's a lot of Capitol watchers saying, stay tuned, just wait.
Well, the truth is nobody has 18 votes in that chamber. No entity. Not the majority of the majority, not the minority of the majority, not the Democrats. So, if the Republicans can't go too far out chastising Democrats because nobody could control that chamber. I mean, you have 7 members that are pretty much dedicated to seeing Cindy O'Loughlin and Caleb Rowden fail and resign. And the Democrats, that should be their role. But instead, they're sort of the folks put in the middle. Senator Rizzo is very deft how he handles his role. But I promise you this, as long as no one has 18 votes, you're not going to see very big controversial policies pass.
Stay tuned, as they like to say in the radio biz. Missouri Times publisher, our buddy Scott Faughn on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Scott, we always appreciate your input.
Y'all have a good week. Talk to you later.
Just ahead, what's up with Anna?
Well, it is not Taylor Swift related,
Oh,
but
man.
it does involve some bathroom humor. So I know, John, you'll be all
Eagle, wake up mid-Missouri, 7:25-ish. Time for What's Hot with Hannah.
And it's even early. I don't even know what to do with all this free time, John.
Well, there you go. You can double up on the bathroom humor now.
There you go. I hate to steal your thunder on this bathroom
So to speak.
humor. Exactly. On this bathroom humor story. And I hope I'm not stealing it from your segment at 7:50. That would be all except for this.
No, ma'am.
Because I see this headline and I immediately go, oh, John would love this. The headline, Denver man injured in a porta potty prank. And unfortunately, this gentleman, his name was Stefano, in Denver at Halleck Park, went to use the facilities there in the Porta John. And he started to feel the porta potty move a little bit. And it kept moving. And he started to say, hey, like there's someone in here. And the whole thing tipped over on its side.
Yipe.
He managed to crawl out the door, which was, luckily not against the ground. So he was still able to get out. By the time he crawled out, there was no one around. So they bolted, right? Some good Samaritans luckily ran over to help him out of the porta potty. And they said that they thought maybe it was a couple teenagers. Or my theory is that maybe it was them. They ran to their car real quick to make it look like they came running from the car. Just a theory.
With their YouTube cameras running.
Yeah. But this guy said that he injured his back in the process of the porta potty falling over. He said, fortunately, it fell on its side because if it had fallen on the front, I wouldn't have been able to open the door to get out. It's something that could have ended in a very unfunny way.
Like it didn't?
Right.
But the good news is he has a new job with the Blue Man Group.
Oh.
There you go.
Thank you.
Hey, very good.
I feel like everyone has at least one good porta potty story. Whether you be the recipient of the story or you were harassing someone else that was in a porta potty. I guess fortunately for this guy in Denver, it probably wasn't very warm yet. I feel like, falling in a porta potty in the middle of summer would be way worse.
Small blessings, right?
Yeah.
Porta pots in the middle of summer is not good. Even when they dress them up, we went to a music event. And
Unless you're the first guy in the line.
And they had these really fancy ones, that had a little sink in there, and it was really nice and stuff. But I always thought you could get in there and somebody could hook it up to the trailer, and who knows when you'd be on, where you'd be.
Well, at one of the last Tiger tailgates that we did for this last Mizzou football season, I went to use the porta potty that we have set up there in front of Mizzou Arena. And it's one of the nicer porta potties I've ever been in. And I went to open the door. The little green symbol was showing, so that meant that it was unlocked and theoretically unoccupied.
Theoretically?
That's a theoretical thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I opened the door and it was not unoccupied. Fortunately / unfortunately, it was a dude, so his back was to the door. So I spared myself from seeing anything too horribly tragic, and I also spared myself because he did not see my face, and I was able to run away and be embarrassed on my own without having to face the guy and him know that I was the one who opened the door while he was going to the bathroom.
You got to watch those latches, man. That whole green-red thing.
What you got to do?
It's a suggestion. A little knock is probably appropriate because I too have opened. There's the green, and I've looked straight into this girl's face who looked horrified, and I said, and just slammed it.
He said, I'll buy you an adult beverage at the Zimmer Radio Wake Up Mid-Missouri Tiger Tailgate next time around.
Yeah, so
it was not at the tailgate. I will say this.
If there's any dude listening right now going, hey, wait a second.
That was me.
Last time I was at a Tiger tailgate, I got walked in on in the porta potty. I apologize, but also lock the door next time, please, and thank you.
Maybe Mid-Missouri Senator Mike Bernskoetter has some Faughn as well. State Senator Mike Bernskoetter in with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Senator, nothing new, I guess, at the State House, right? You just have been sitting back with your feet up on the desk.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Hannah. And Brian's there somewhere, too.
He's hiding out here.
Good morning. Well, we sat with our feet up for 18 hours, if that's what you call sitting with your feet up. The other night, we started at 4 on Monday and went till 10 o'clock Tuesday morning on filibuster on IP reform. And the super minority wanted to go to IP reform first. They wanted to do that first on the calendar. And they were holding up gubernatorial appointments, not for any reason, but just because. And we said, no, we're going to do goobies first, and then we'll do IP. And that's exactly what happened. We did goobies first, and then we're going to do IP, but they still claimed victory somehow, even though they didn't get anything.
Well, you've got two of them on the calendar, and I was kidding you. You've got a bill there on the calendar. It's our unemployment bill that we've worked on for a decade. It's got a long and storied history, the bill that you've got.
Yeah, I've talked about this for several years, and most people have probably heard the story before, but if you haven't, Lieutenant Governor had this bill, and he actually got it passed. Then Governor Nixon vetoed this bill, and then they tried to override it in a special or veto session or something, and the court said we couldn't do it like that, and we've been in limbo ever since.
Yeah. Well, you've got two huge issues. You've got FRA and you've got the initiative petition bills ahead of yours. And I told John, I said, well, yeah, Mike's got a bill up, but we'll see what month it is that maybe we get a chance to at least debate that on the floor a little bit.
Maybe a while before we get there. Like I said, we've been talking about initiative petition reform, and we actually passed a version of it last year. We have it's different this year. We actually are going to go with the 50 plus 1, constitutional majority. And then also the preferred version right now is to go with the 5 of the 8 congressional districts. So it's not, I think last year we had where it was 57% or something, and we raised that threshold, but this year we're looking at the congressional districts and leaving the 50.1, 50 plus 1.
Wasn't there some discussion about some percentage of the legislative districts?
Yeah, so there's many versions of it.
There were 12 bills.
Yeah, you could
week.
change the 50% plus 1 to 55 or 57 or 60 or something like that. But then there's also a version where you do it by House districts or you do it by Senate districts. And the problem with those is I'm not sure they're constitutional because, say, a House district is 100,000 people, their variance is 5%. So you could have 95,000 in one district and 105,000 in a different district. And so those aren't the same ratios. And congressional districts are the exact same number in all 8 districts except for one. There's only one extra in one of the districts. It's like 769,369, and one of them's plus 1 on the other on the 8th district.
Yeah.
So they're more evenly divided.
Well, John and I were talking, and I said, when this hits the floor, the Democrats for the most part have been sitting back and watching the quasi implosion of the Senate, and probably having coffee, and but they will get engaged, will they not, when the initiative petition bill hits the floor?
Absolutely, unless we're fighting amongst ourselves again, but I would think so. So the other night when I told you we were there for 18 hours, Senator Igo was coming up with different versions of the gubernatorial appointments. He took them if there was like 36, he took like 18 of them and said, here, take this list. And we voted that down. And then the first person he called on was Senator May from St. Louis, and he said, I see you voted against my proposal. Who do you want to pass through gubernatorial appointments? And she said, Francis Slay. So, he always says that we vote with the Democrats. And the first person he called on was the liberal Democrat. And one of the more liberal mayors that we've ever had, he wanted to add him to the list. And so I said something to Senator Rizzo, and I said, aren't you going to say anything about those guys working with the Democrats? And he goes, I haven't spoke yet, and I'm not going to speak until I have to. They, like I said, they haven't done anything. They don't need to.
Well, Senator Rizzo was on the committee that heard all of the initiative petition bills.
Yeah.
And he was very candid in saying, why don't we cut through all this? Tell us which of these bills is it that we're going to take to the floor. Basically, which one is it that the Freedom Caucus endorses? And that's the one we're going to. He was getting kind of riled up, and I kind of get his point. Yeah. I mean, you had all these flavors, and it's like, all right, why are we wasting the time? Let's get to it here. Let's get to the one that we think we're going to at least some of the Republicans are going to get around. So
yeah, they like to say they're more conservative us or more Republican us, which isn't true at all. I guess the first 2 weeks of session, they had a proposal to slow the bills down. And then the second week, they had a proposal to speed the bills up. I mean, they're just, they're not serious at all. And Senator Igo said, I can't believe the Democrats didn't vote with me on this proposal to slow things down. It would help the Democrats. Well, the Democrats are more serious about legislating than that super minority is. I mean, that's just the truth. They don't care about what happens. They don't care about leadership. They don't care about the other senators. They are majority rule. That's not their game. Their game is to, call us out and pretend like we're rhinos and get hits on Facebook. Because I think part of it too is because of term limits. They got to find somewhere else to go. I think you heard about somebody say something, I don't know if Scott Faughn or something, about people don't want to leave Jeff City. It is amazing the number of people that don't want to leave Jeff City. They got to find something else to do. So all those guys are running for higher office, and so that's their way of getting attention is to pretend like they're more conservative than we are.
Senator Mike Bernskoetter with us from Mid-Missouri on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Senator, we had Cindy O'Loughlin, leadership from the Senate, on with us the other morning. And we asked her about the nuclear option and the use of PQ, the previous question. She kind of danced around it a little with us, not to take anything away from her, but she sort of hearkened back to the traditions of the Senate and all as her response to that. Is that an option? Is that something? We don't see that very often go down in the Senate.
Yeah, that's always an option. It's I've been there going on my 6th year, and I've never signed a PQ. That's not. The Senate's not supposed to operate like that. It's free and fair debate. I've never signed one. It depends on the issue, I guess, if I would sign one or not, but I haven't signed one yet. We actually had a couple of years ago, Senator Cunningham had to come all the way from home. He went home for some reason. He had to come back at 2 or 3 in the morning to sign a PQ because I wouldn't sign it. I'm not signing that PQ. We just need to work this out, I want to work things out, but we have another group of people that don't want to work it out. They just want to, trash talk us. They're kind of like, I used to play basketball until COVID, then COVID kind of shut our basketball down. And, we'd have these guys that would say, you can't stop me. My shot's better than yours, whatever people, it was probably in a different language than that. but that's what they do. They just say they're more conservative and everybody believes them. Just let your actions, speak for yourself. We don't have to hear about what you're doing and how you're more conservative than us. Just let your actions, show what's going on. And that's not what they want to do.
Well, I've been doing this a while, and I've seen, 4 or 5 PQs maybe in my entire career. And normally the course of action for PQs is at least you do them the last week so that because it is the nuclear option. Nothing comes after that.
No.
But I've never seen one in February. And if you're going to get an IP bill over there, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
but that is a way that it could get over there.
Yeah, so the Democrats last year let us pass IP reform I don't get the sense that they're going to let us pass IP reform without a fight. And then, I was telling you about Senator Cunningham coming from home and sign a PQ. And then the bill that we PQ'd the Democrats on, the House didn't even take it up. So, it was a wasted move. But
well, that brings up another question. Okay, let's say you're going to get IP, you get it through the Senate.
Yeah.
What kind of reception do you think it's going to get when it gets to the House?
Well, I think the majority of them are in favor of IP reform too. They might not agree with the version that we give them, but I think the majority, I don't know, have they had hearings on IP in the House?
I don't know that they have.
Yeah, I don't know that they had either. I heard there was something that, they were waiting on the House to do. The Senate was waiting on the House to do, and I heard Representative Plocker canceled the hearing, whatever it was. I can't remember what issue it was, but he's like, you all do it first. We're not going to do it. And, which I don't blame him. There's no reason for them to do much, if everything's going crazy over on on our side.
Well, yeah. Well, when you're from the House standpoint, you're like, well, if my bill is going to enter the black hole as soon as it goes
right
across the rotunda,
well, what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah, I agree.
Know. Yeah.
Well, Mike, before we let you out of here, a big issue, Company Town, 14,000 state workers in Jefferson City, thousands more in Columbia at the university and the Med Center and all. What about state worker pay? We heard from the governor.
So I was very excited. The governor, recommended 3% pay increase for state employees. I stood up and cheered that. I'm going to try to work with Senate Appropriations Chairman Senator Huff and see if we can't get a little more for our state employees. I know they said, I think the governor mentioned that we gave them a 20% raise over the last few years. I've actually had to raise my employees' pay probably 25% over the last few years. And so I think they're still deserving of more. So I'm going to work with him to see if we can't get state employees more.
Mid-Missouri Senator Mike Bernskoetter with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Well, Mike, we'll let you get back to the businesses, the people at the State House. And heck, who knows what the available on the platform. This is left, as Hannah pointed out, muted videos showing users dancing to nothing at all, but some Taylor Swift.
Awkward.
Taylor Swift fans are finding creative ways around it. Swifties have begun singing the songs themselves and posting their own versions. Angela from Argentina says, I've been posting covers that are finally receiving attention. I want people to enjoy them, and if it also helps, that's even better. She also said it helps me because more people are able to listen to my covers, find about my account, and make me money via TikTok. So it sounds like Taylor, sort of, and, on that reference, shake it off. And now you know the rest of that story.
Now, John, this is going to really test your pop culture knowledge here. You always surprise me, but do you know who JoJo Siwa is?
No.
Well, she kind of got her start on Dance Moms back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like a pop star for little kids right now. Known for wearing the high ponytail with the big old hair bow. But she actually...
Yeah, the one that somebody compared to My Little Pony.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Minnie Mouse.
She actually made a TikTok over the weekend, and the gist of it was, is it bad that I'm finding out that all of my music was removed from TikTok on TikTok? So she, I guess, was not informed that her music would be getting pulled off the platform, and actually saw someone else make a TikTok about it, and that's how she found out.
So, and then her video, when she pulled it up to make sure it was running okay, was just muted and her doing nothing, huh?
I guess so.
So we're replacing mute with bad singing. Now, I don't know how this is good. I really don't. I mean, usually with pretty mediocre dancing, too. So now we're adding, questionable vocals with questionable dancing.
Well, then TikTok being mercifully short, I think, might be the...
Well, you got that going. It doesn't last very long. Just grin and bear it, I guess.
Brad, I've seen your TikTok page, and I would call your dancing better than mediocre.
You have not seen my TikTok page because it don't exist.
There's, I guess, someone else moonlighting as you then. I don't know.
I guess it must be.
There's several other lobbyists at times have moonlighted as Brad at the Capitol.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Well, Brad, appreciate you being here. We're going to talk to Congressman Kruckemeyer when we come back. But once again, boy, it's another one of those challenging sessions for our not only Missouri small business people, but mid-Missouri small business people at the State House.
It is. We do have Judge Russell is going to be visiting with us this week.
We
have the State of the Judiciary. So that's on Wednesday. So I love Mary Russell. She married us, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So she's one of my faves. And, of course, the great Paul Wilson, Judge Wilson, who I went to school with.
Jefferson City native.
That's right.
Judge Wilson.
Right. All right, John, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, buddy.
Of the Judge Wilson's family.
That's right. That's right.
And
the only thing I would say is, Sandy, happy birthday, baby.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk to Congressman Blaine Kruckemeyer, get his
Always a pleasure.
Well, the senators have their version of the border deal and foreign aid package. Your speaker, Mr. Johnson, already declared the deal. Well, I think his words were dead on arrival in the House after this text was released. Where are we going with all this? What do you think? I know you speculate about your side of the building. What do you think the senators are going to do?
Oh, wow. Who knows what the senators are going to do? That's a whole different group of people over there. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of consternation, apparently, it's from news reports this morning on that side of the building as well. So I don't know. All I've seen is news reports of the bill. I haven't seen some of the details of some of the text to tell you whether there's some poison pills hidden in here or whether there's some good stuff that you could start to work on. I know that the speaker and the leader both have come out against the bill. So I think at this point, let's see once what they've got and see once where it's headed. The House was left out of negotiations, so this is completely a Senate product. And I don't even know if they can get it through the Senate. So we'll see what happens.
What would you like to see happen if it was all up to you?
Well, I think, the interesting part of this is that the president was handed a pretty good situation for President Trump because he had spent 4 years trying to figure out how to fix this mess. And a couple of several things that actually worked. And so first thing that, Biden goes in there and he undoes all the things that President Trump was doing that had decreased the number of folks coming across the border and started to put in place some measures that actually worked. So I think, you need to have an asylum process to help people come in who are being threatened by the government. But this is totally unacceptable what's going on. This is a total abuse of the system, the way they've got it structured right now. I think you have to do several things. I think you've got to finish the border wall. I think you give the Border Patrol the authority and the tools to be able to man that border, whether it's more people, whether it's electronic surveillance, whether it's better for detention facilities for the folks that do come across. And I think you need to give the Border Patrol more support. Right now, they're the ones that are doing all the paperwork and changing diapers, and I think we need to find another way to support them. I've said for a long time that the military could take a 90-day or 180-day tour of duty down there and be the support for the Border Patrol. They know their job. They know what they need to be doing. The military can be helpful by being their logistics support folks. So I think you need to negotiate with the other countries that are there in South America. I know in talking with the diplomats from Honduras, their president refuses to pick up the phone and talk to them. And Honduras has got a lot of folks either coming from it or coming through their country and want to stop it just like we do. Yet there seems to be no will on the administration's part to even pick up the phone and start that discussion. So there's just a myriad of things I think could be done, that would be helpful. And the fentanyl coming across the border is totally out of control. I sit on the fentanyl task force of the China Select Committee, and I'm very well aware of how this all operates and how it works. Cartels now have about 40% of the control of the country of Mexico. So you're dealing with a whole different set of problems with that. So we got a lot of issues there that are made on our side of the border because we're allowing this all to happen. I think you work with the governors. Abbott in Texas is taking a proactive approach to trying to stop stuff coming across his border. And yet the federal government is trying to throw roadblocks in his way. They should be working with him, not against him. So, I mean, again, John, I can talk all morning on this. It's a huge problem. Every state's a border state. Here in Missouri, we are building the fence of the crime and the fentanyl that are coming across the border. So we need to be engaged in it just as if we were Texas or New Mexico.
Congressman Blaine Kruckemeyer with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Congressman, I guess to switch to the other side of the world and the attack by the Houthis and the Iran-backed terror groups, because that's what they are, on international shipping and U.S. troops and all. Are we on the right track with our response with us, the U.K. and our allies, or would you like to see more happen?
Well, I think you have to respond and keep pushing back against these individuals because it's disrupting shipping, which through that Red Sea and Suez Canal area there is really, really important because it's one of the main shipping thoroughfares in the world. Even China is starting to talk to the Houthis and say, "Hey, stop it! Pull back," and because it's affecting their ability to do trade. So, I think we need to. And these are people I don't think you can negotiate with under any circumstances. Only thing they know is just gun for gun, bullet for bullet, which is unfortunate. But they're being supported by Iran. All the money that we are allowing them to make with their oil sales, which Trump had stopped, and they had their economy on the ropes and about ready to collapse. And Joe Biden goes in and takes the sanctions off, and now they've made between $800 and $100 billion in oil sales in the last 3 years. And as a result of that, they got plenty of money to throw around to all these terrorist groups. And you see the effect of it. They're becoming the main instigators and main pass-through for dollars to these groups and support of these groups that's there in the Middle East now. And so, and behind the scenes, China's sitting there applauding all this because it distracts us, it dings us a little bit, and it also keeps us occupied. So it's a really bad deal. We need to be pushing back against the Houthis in any way we can, and engaging, I think, some of the other Arab countries over there to help us with this.
What do you think is going to happen with the budget for Israel's war on terror and the ongoing war in Ukraine?
Well, we've been trying to use those two funding situations, Ukraine and Israel, to be able to get up some border relief. And the border package that was sent to us has got some of those dollars in there, but I haven't seen all of the details or whether there's some strings with it or not. I think those are two friends, and we need to be supporting them, in my judgment. I think most people around the world and around our country would agree with that. There are those who are more sedentary in their way of looking at things, which is unfortunate. But I really think that if we don't stop this, there's just another big step coming to kick out Israel and kick out Ukraine and then go from there. It's a really bad deal. So I think we need to be supporting them. How we get that done is being negotiated, and I think leveraging those two bills for border changes, I think is a good swap. It leverages what we want to get, which is some controls at the border, and I think these other things are very necessary. So I know the speaker's come out; he wants to have just a separate bill for Israel. I think that loses some leverage for us, but he's got, I'm sure, some sort of a plan. It came out over the weekend, so I haven't heard his thought process on why he's wanting to do this. He sent a letter to us, but the letter didn't have anything in it with regards to his thought process. So I'm interested to hear how he's improving our leverage by doing that. But I'm a supporter of funding to Ukraine and Israel. I think it's important to support our friends.
Congressman, with your long background in banking in mid-Missouri and serving on related boards on Capitol Hill and all, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell made the rounds. He was on 60 Minutes last night, and boy, he did not sound too optimistic for any interest rates cuts in the near future. He said March is out and May doesn't sound much better. What do you think?
Well, I've been saying that for a long time, and nobody will listen to me.
We're listening.
And I've told everybody for a long time, until you get inflation down under 3 consistently, I don't think the Fed's going to do this. I mean, I get to talk to Chairman Powell fairly regularly, and I had one of the Fed governors in my office last week, and we talked about this issue very thoroughly. And if things stay as is, there could be some cuts later on in the year, but I wouldn't expect anything the first quarter, probably not even second quarter, because inflation isn't down to the 2s where he wants to get it. Now, that being said, the last 6 months, inflation has been in around 2%. So if it can be held there for another, like I say, 3 or 4 or 5 months here, I think you could then see perhaps some cuts. But until then, they are hell-bent on getting that inflation down under 3 and down toward the bottom of 2 here. And with the 350,000 jobs that were created last month, the continued spending by the government's propping this whole thing up by pouring all the money into the economy that they're pouring in there. And then the activity that's in the economy, people are still engaged in lots of stuff, and there's still a lot of activity going on. And the businesses, as you can see, have been engaged as well, hiring 350,000 people. And the number of people that are quitting and changing jobs continues to go down, which tells you they're satisfied where they're at and they're concerned about their next job. So I think we're at a place where we're having a soft landing. And I think the Fed is not going to lower rates. I don't think before July 1. I really don't think that that's going to happen. And just from my conversation with those guys, inflation continues to be their priority. It continues to haunt them. And until inflation gets down in the lower twos, I don't think you're going to see them cut rates.
Congressman Blaine Kruckemeyer this morning with us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Congressman, as always, we appreciate your input. Look forward to talking to you next time.
Well, it's fun, guys. Take care.
Just ahead on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, former Chief State Economist Tom Kruckemeyer, the man we bill as the liberal you love to
last 3 months, it's only risen 2% thereabouts. So, I mean, it was quite high for a while, and that's pretty good news on the inflation front.
Does it feel like it when you go to the store that food prices are lower and all, or even the gas pump? It doesn't, I don't think, to the average listener.
Well, two things that now let me be clear. What the inflation rate, it doesn't. It tells you how much they are rising. Now, food prices and the overall inflation rate are still going up, but at a much, much slower pace. And the answer to the question is, well, no, it doesn't seem like that at the grocery store. Seems like stuff there costs as much or more as it did. And that's borne out by the statistics, but the increase is way, way less. Now, that's the other part of your question. At the gas pump, that is not true. Gasoline has actually dropped substantially, the actual price at the pump, and now it's in Missouri. I brought this stat here, and it's the average is about $2.80 a gallon, which is about 12% lower than it was a year ago when it was up well over $3.
Yeah, I paid about a dime more than that this weekend. So
yeah, that both of those have improved a lot, but certainly, to be fair, they had a long way coming down there, you might say. But the trends are undeniably in a good direction on the inflation front, and hopefully, when the Fed gets what they think is enough data, they'll maybe move a little bit on interest rates. But it's also important to note the Federal Reserve is not this one guy getting up in the morning and thumbing through the Wall Street Journal. The Federal Reserve is an elaborate.
A couple dozen people, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there's
the
like,
board.
Yeah, there's a board, and they have appointments that last many, many years. That the idea is to keep them out of the political maelstrom of the moment and to do what's right for the economy in their view. And they also have many, many learned economists working for them on the staff level, of people that are way smarter than I am. I can promise you that, not saying much. But and there are 12 Federal Reserve banks, I believe, 2 in Missouri, that have staffs of, PhD, real high-level economists to do all this research, and then, of course, funnels its way up to the board and ultimately to the chairman. So the decisions that they're making are very well informed by some of the best economic minds working in the field.
Well, I think for a lot of folks out there, we need to go to the break. For it seems to the average guy out there watching it at all is a little hard to stomach, especially how you're digesting the national news stories on it.
Well, sure. And I mean, I guess people that are following this closely may have their beliefs, and they probably do, on national political issues and the political races coming up. But the Federal Reserve, and I also saw Chairman Powell last night on 60 Minutes, and I think he's very sincere that they don't do politics. They do economics, and I have no reason to doubt that.
Tom Kruckemeyer in with us, former Missouri State Chief Economist. We'll switch our discussion a little bit over to the state of the state and the governor's ideas on a budget for the upcoming fiscal year when we continue this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. to what's going on at the State House. And I guess your takeaway on, one, Mike Parsons' legacy from an economic standpoint, and what you heard from him in his recent State of the State address.
Well, I think Governor Parson, in terms of fiscal matters, it's kind of a strange way of putting this, but the federal COVID relief money has made the state budget way better than it would have been otherwise. Now, I understand, of course, that COVID has and continues to be a terrible tragedy, and many people have died from it, and I'm not dismissing that at all. But in terms of the budget, the federal money that has become available has put the state budget in pretty darn good shape. And obviously that helps, Governor Parson or whoever would have been in the chair at the time to be able to be pretty generous on tax and budget policy because such a ginormous amount of money became available. Of course, it's not going to be there forever, and we're starting to probably see some reversion to that as the year begins to unfold budget-wise. But I think an interesting statistic I'd like to put forth is you hear a lot of people, griping, the budget's too big, it's bloated, it's wasteful, all that stuff. Well, you're certainly entitled to that opinion. However, the state budget a few years ago was divided up roughly into three categories. You had general revenue, you had other state dedicated sources, and federal money, and each were roughly a third of the budget, give or take a bit. Currently, the governor's budget proposal for FY25 has 50% of the budget is federal money, and that's good because it provides ways to do a lot of things that otherwise weren't getting done, like the I-70 expansion. I think most people are pretty happy about. However, that money's not really sustainable forever. Now, we still got a nice surplus, and we will have one at the end of FY25 if everything goes as has been proposed and predicted, which is, big if. But the fact is this money has been available. State workers have got a nice increase or scheduled to get another one, and it's been a very good thing. But there needs to be good stewardship, and I think the governor and the budget office are certainly aware of that. Because on the state tax side, state revenues had been quite good in FYs 21 through 23, but now the official revenue forecasts have that leveling off, basically no growth the next couple of years, and I think those numbers are pretty reasonable. And even though the economic news is really very good, employment's pretty good, and it's excellent actually in the state of Missouri with the unemployment rate still hovering around 3%. But the key to it is the state individual income tax is going down, or at least for the calendar year of 2023, state income tax withholding, which is by far the largest component, declined 1.6%. Now, if there's a storm cloud or whatever you might want, red flag, whatever term you like, that would be it. And the reason is the state top income tax rate has gone from 6% from a few years ago all the way down to 4.8%, which is what it's going to be this year. Last year it was 4.95. So the decline in that is going to obviously cost the state quite a bit of individual income tax, and that seems to be now showing up in the revenue reports, and that's something obviously needs to be paid very close attention to.
Former state chief economist Tom Kruckemeyer is with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
John, thank you, and great job as always, John, hosting today. We appreciate great guests, a lot of very informative, guests, and we're getting a lot of details. We appreciate that. Tom, an issue that I think does relate to the state, because the state is still, even today, paying on and you and I have talked many times over the years about stadium funding, but technically the state is still paying on the Trans World Dome that was now later the Edward Jones Dome, now something called America Center. Millions of dollars a year, I believe it's $12 million a year we're paying on that building. I think a lot of people would be surprised at that, but that is the case. You see what's happening in Kansas City. Frank White vetoed the bill dealing with the Chiefs and the Royals. He felt like there should be more protections, if you will, for taxpayers. The legislature overrode him. By the way, they're all Democrats, so it wasn't a partisan issue, but nonetheless, he was overrode. just in general, in terms of stadium funding, do you think stadiums like Arrowhead or stadiums like, let's say, the Rams Stadium or Busch Stadium, should those receive state tax dollars or local tax dollars?
No.
And why not?
Well, let me elaborate. Actually, this is one of my favorite subjects, and I'm glad you brought it up because I've sort of an amateur sports economist and have studied and written about this. The current situation is pretty interesting with the Chiefs and the Royals. Now, Forbes magazine publishes annual estimates of the profits being made by NFL and other teams. The Chiefs last 2 years made $60 million profit and then $90 million profit. And I'm not picking on the Chiefs or anything, but the professional sports industry, particularly the NFL, is extremely profitable. And it's extremely profitable because it has a monopoly over professional football in this country, essentially. And they need no public subsidy to be viable and profitable. Therefore, I would certainly oppose that. And it also should be pointed out the current budget every year allocates $3 million to the Royals and Chiefs for stadium upkeep, whatever that. I'm sure they all would need some. But the point is, public subsidy for a massively profitable industry, I think, is utterly ridiculous. And it's, of course, there's a history of that. You're interesting to point out that the former Rams Dome is still being paid for. Happily, I think that's the debt service there has pretty much run its course. And fortunately, Bush 3 in St. Louis got very little state subsidy. Got some infrastructure tax credits, but got very little.
Correct.
In part thanks to my efforts. I'll pat myself on the back there. Nobody minds. Okay, because I actually wrote about the Major League Baseball needs revenue sharing, not new stadiums, and to some extent that's been done. But the thing in Kansas City, it would, to me, would be a horrific waste of tax money, particularly given the fact that the Chiefs and Royals can certainly make enough money on their own, especially the Chiefs, and shouldn't need any additional public subsidies.
And on that, in terms of the, there's been some fans that have said that Kansas City needs downtown baseball, that's not a appropriate atmosphere, if you will. I've heard all sorts of stuff. But it's been there for as long as I've been alive, that stadium out there, the Chiefs and Royals, literally since the late 60s, early 70s, about 50 years. What's your take real quickly on that, about this? Because the Royals sounds like they want this downtown stadium. And what do you think?
I think that's absurd. I think what makes a better baseball atmosphere is, winning a game now and then. I mean, again, I'm not picking on the Royals, but they're
sure sounds like it.
Well, other than their 2-year visits to the World Series, when they had a very good team over their last 30 years, they usually out of contention by Mother's Day, and that's a problem. I don't think building a downtown stadium is going to make any difference with that. I think Kauffman Stadium, I get to quite a few games there, is a lovely stadium. People seem to like it. Another thing, a few years ago, and I think in 2009, it underwent extensive renovations that I think were at least in part publicly paid for. So I don't think it makes a lot of sense to be doing that. Now they own the team and they can do what they like. But if they want to build a downtown stadium, that's fine with me, but do it with your own money. That would be my view on that. And Major League Baseball needs to probably revisit its revenue sharing system and make it a little more beneficial to the smaller market teams. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here.
Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Tom, these are some topics you've weighed in before, like you said, even with our former state treasurer. You and Sarah Steelman drafted some papers on the Buck side of Major League sports and all. I guess a question, if we're going to stay along the sports vein, what was your take on Missouri passing and the governor signing into law the name, image, and likeness measure for athletes in Missouri?
Oh, I'm very, very much in favor of that. Speaking, also that's an area I've worked in, the college side of it. And it's obvious that major college football and major college men's basketball players are being paid way less than their just rewards, and the NIL situation has allowed a little bit of redress concerning that. So I think it's great that some of the players are now getting something closer to their actual economic worth. But I can assure you, with what they're getting paid in Missouri and the other states is nothing close to what their true economic value is. And again, I'll take some credit along with Sarah for pointing that out. And with the Cardinals, we put some research together years that made the case for revenue sharing in baseball as opposed to public subsidy. So I'm enjoying this little trip down memory lane, and but it's become very much a live issue. The situation with Kansas City, and then the whole mishmash of major college football and men's basketball is really become a real jambalaya. But to answer the question, the NIL thing is a good thing, I think, unambiguously, but because it's fair that you should be able to sell your name, image, and likeness for some profit, given what you're actually generating for the institution relative to what you're getting paid, which is a scholarship, and that's not nothing. I never said it was, but this is a good thing.
Well, Tom, before we let you get out of here this morning, and swapping back to state budget, the upcoming state budget and the fiscal work there, maybe some cautions or some ideas, especially for those younger, even freshman state lawmakers, as they get into the whole work of hashing out a budget.
Well, where I work in the budget project, we are certainly concerned about eroding the tax base. And that's still going on with the income tax cuts that are kicking in. And it's kind of alarming to me that given the excellent economic news, employment's up, unemployment's down, all this stuff's pretty darn good, that the state income tax is declining. So normally those two things would be positively correlated. The state sales tax growth is excellent. But if eventually you cut taxes, you get less money, and I would be advising, if anyone cares, that the time to go easy on the tax cuts, and if you have extra money, I would recommend putting it towards things that help lower income people, that with low income seniors. The state should be looking at enhancing the circuit breaker program to make it more modern, given the current economic situation. It would help low income seniors if there is indeed extra money to utilize.
Tom Kruckemeyer from the Missouri Budget Project, former chief state economist, with us this morning. Tom, we always teach wanted to share in here before we go on to literal leftovers. Father of Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes Sr., arrested in Texas on his third charge of driving while intoxicated, picked up Sunday night in their hometown of Tyler, Texas. Okay, there, we got that on the radio. From the Jefferson City host Lions, ham and bean and chili feed, probably one of the best fundraisers out there. Our buddy Lyle Rosberg again with us. Lyle, this week.
It is. It's Wednesday. You're going to have great weather. It's going to be the perfect time to come by St. Peter's Church right next to the Capitol and have some ham, bean, chili box. We'll feed you well. We'll give you lots of food, and it supports a great cause for all the great things that Lions do in the community.
And I will say you have the best curbside pickup going in mid-Missouri.
Yeah, I can't say they're the most attractive, but they're hardworking. They're good folks, and you'll probably recognize people from the community delivering the boxes right out to your car. You don't have to get out. We don't have to worry about rain or anything, but it's going to be just as easy as can be for you to drive through and pick up what you need for lunch or dinner.
There's so many different service clubs out there, and there's so many branches of the Lions Club, Lions International, all across mid-Missouri. I guess maybe talk to us real quick while you're here about what you guys do with the funds that you raise from the big social event of the season.
Absolutely, yes. So service clubs have been challenged the last couple of years. People are just, quote unquote, too busy. But if you think about all the different things across the community that have the Lions on it, had Kiwanis on it, have the Cosmos on it, those are all great things that make our community better, and it didn't cost any tax dollars. You buy a ham and bean and chili meal, and the money goes right back to the community. 100% of our profits go back to the community and to Lions causes. One of the big Lions causes that we support, both as international but also as a local club, is eyesight, eye visions. As our club, the Lions Club, was challenged in 1925 by Helen Keller to be Knights of the Blind, and we took that to heart. So when you see those yellow drop boxes around Jefferson City, you drop your old eyeglasses, we recycle those. Those go back to people that need them. We did over 4,800 eye vision screenings last year in the Jefferson City area of kids in different parts of the public schools, but also at daycares. And we're finding a lot more vision problems because kids have a lot more screen time. And you want to catch those early because if you can't see, you can't read, you can't learn. So it's very important for those type activities. There are other Lions causes, but the one that our club has really embraced to the large extent is the vision program.
I know Lions International, at least all across mid-Missouri and all across the country, has always been involved with school sports programs and helping them with their physical facilities, and I know you've done that yourselves, haven't you?
We absolutely have, yes. We've given lots of different, all our fundraisers obviously go back to the community. We've taken care of the school safety patrol here in Jefferson City since its inception way back in the 50s. We renovated the Jeff City High School football locker room, the stadium, which is called Licklider Track, named after two Licklider coaches, and one just happens to be chair of our ham and bean event. So we appreciate
and it's
Dennis's
his chili recipe.
It is his chili recipe, and it's a very good chili recipe. We've given to the Miller Performing Arts Center, and then it expands out into the Jeff City Board of Parks of Rec. We were the predecessor to the Parks and Rec, and built a lot of facilities, including the ice arena, the comfort station on the Greenway, the water oasis that we recently put in by Hyde Park. We've done a lot of stuff with parks, but Lions do a lot of things in Columbia as well. Maybe not the Jeff City Lions, but they sure do from the Columbia Lions. That's why it's called Lions Stevens Park. There's a reason for that the Lions put a lot of effort into that, and they have a pavilion and they have walking trails. So it's a really, really great event for you to support the community.
Lions ham and bean and chili feed when and where?